Hi, welcome to ML Buchman's 5 Insider Factoids. These are answers to questions I've received from readers, and today's topic is Light Up the Night, Night Stalkers number 5. Warning, this does include spoilers. So, heading in. Creative thinking. That's one of the things that I really gave Trisha, and I love that about her. It's she doesn't see the box to go outside of it. She just doesn't see it. We're always taught, think outside the box, think outside the box. She just, there's no such thing in her world. And I love that about her. And it's something I've actually worked pretty hard to emulate myself over the years as I tried to build creative thought processes. And I studied creative thought for a while on the side just to think about how we perceive things the same way because we've done them the same way. And what can I do to get creative and get out of that hole? One of the things I've discovered for myself and for Trisha is they make you both smart and stupid because when you're going outside the box, you get that creative idea, you get the innovative thing, and then you get really attached to that idea, no matter how stupid it is, because there's a reason, there's a lane at least, if not a box. There's a path forward that a lot of times when I go off to the side, and a lot of times when Trisha goes off to the side, it's we kind of end up going that way by accident. Um, and so it's a really fun trap, and I love that I was able to capture that with this character. It's the I've mentioned this before, but uh, I once heard Norman Mailer say that you have to put at least 5% of yourself into a character, and I think it's more like 20% of yourself to bring the character to life. Well, for Trisha, this aspect of her is that's me, and it was so much fun to write her. So I wanted to take this crazy person and put her in hard situations. So I went to failed states, and at that time of this writing, which is about a decade ago, um, there there are a number of failed states, and what that really means is they they can't feed themselves. The water isn't running. The sewage is mixed with the water. I mean, it's just the state doesn't work anymore. Um, Somalia was the worst. Yemen is right up there now. South Sudan is in full collapse. The reason DR Congo is still functioning at all is because they have such fantastic mineral wealth that Western countries are trying to come in and take the mineral wealth, uh, especially the US and China, but the country isn't really functioning. Syria has a government being held up in a small area by immense amount of Russian firepower, and the rest of it's coming apart. So it just gives you an idea. These places are really in horrible, horrible states. There's a ranking actually for the distance you are from state failure, and there it's called the Fragile States Index. And in 2003, to give you an idea of how bad some of these countries are, Libya was all the way up to number 17, so it was recovering pretty well. In the last 3 years, Ukraine went from number 60 of about 170, 180, so right at about a third, all the way down to 18, one above Libya. Thank you, Russia. Now, if you think the U.S. is all wonderful and pristine, um, we have a score of 141. We're 38 places out of top. Norway's at the top. Uh, and the we lost something like 30 places on January 6, 2020, because suddenly our wonderful, stable state got invaded by a bunch of yahoos in the Capitol building. So, yeah, don't get complacent, I think, is the answer, because the collapse and the drops and the attacks that can destroy a state are very real. And I wanted to show that. So I wanted to walk in this story. I walked into Somalia where it was the fishing was so bad that they went to piracy because they had no other choice. They literally had no other choice. Um, they didn't have the navy to stop countries like Korea coming in with fishing trawlers and just scraping the reefs out and scraping all the fish out with bottom trawlers, because it wasn't their territory, um, and it wasn't Korea's territory, and Somalia had no ability to defend. So suddenly the fishermen couldn't eat, couldn't feed their families. And there's all these fat cat container ships going by. Well, let's get in a fishing boat and see if we can take them down. And that was at the core of this story. Now, one of the things about writing a book is you're looking for some way to put pressure on the characters. You really want them to be driven or trapped or something that they have to find their way through. And family is always a big trigger for all of us. And the what I did was I said, okay, Trisha has what's actually probably a pretty decent family, but she can't stand it. I mean, they have money, they have status. Um, she could have easily walked that path, but being the out of the box person, she couldn't fit inside that frame and fought it every inch of the way. Billy is a pure family man. He protects family over everything else. His whole mental world has revolved around his mother and taking care of his mother and making sure that her disastrous past, he gets her free of it and gives her a place to at least exist happily enough. So we have a difference in the past. Then I looked at what's the family of origin versus the found family. Family of origin is what we come from. It's a common phrase. But the found family is Bill he's finds family, oddly enough, in the one man he can respect who can outfight him, which is Michael Gibson. Trisha has a found family but doesn't know to appreciate it because she's always rebelled against everything. So the Night Stalker, she never fits into the team because she keeps being that rebel self, that out of the box person. And she has to realize the power of the found family. And it's Bill who teaches her the value of family so that she then realizes what she had in the Night Stalkers and will fight her way back to become a part of that. I love this ship. The USS Pelelilu was retiring about the time I wrote Christmas at Steel Beach, which was, I was looking for, I'll talk more about this book some other day, but I was looking for a platform from which the Night Stalkers could launch into Somalia and into other missions. And here was this big, beautiful landing helicopter ship that uh, was being decommissioned. And it was like, oh, so much fun. What if we leave a skeleton Navy crew on it, take off the 1,700 Marines who usually lived below decks? And the reason I think it's called a half battalion. I don't remember exactly, but um, and it's an armored Marine division. So what happens is if you look down in the hull of the ship, it's actually a huge garage, and the front end is filled with tanks and trucks and all the stuff you need if you're going to take a beach. And then in the back, there's this big open well deck where they bring in landing craft and they can drive the trucks in down a ramp onto the landing craft and then take the landing craft out the back of the ship under the protection of all the helicopters that are up on top. And there's a hangar deck right under there. And they could also fly Harrier jets off this. So it's an incredibly flexible ship. It's like a mini aircraft carrier. It doesn't have the steam catapult launches. Can't the jets have to have, they used were Harriers, which had vertical takeoff ability. So they didn't need the long deck that the big aircraft carriers and the F-18s do. But so I had a lot of fun with this ship and taking it places. And the Pelelilu actually has wandered around through many of my stories since this moment, and it's what created the Christmas at Steel Beach. A Steel Beach is uh, often parties are held like crossing the equator is a big party for a ship. And let me back up. When you're on one of these ships, like an aircraft carrier, you don't see the light of day. If you aren't flight crew or deck crew, you pretty much aren't going to see the light of day for most of your tour. There aren't windows down the side. You're down inside the steel can. You're cooking, cleaning, repairing, arming, running the engines, whatever, below decks. And so it's a really big deal to get up on deck. And so they'll throw a party on the steel deck and have a barbecue up there and have games and so on, just to break the monotony and give people a chance when they're not in active operations to get out from underneath all the steel. So that's the steel deck. Um, okay, that's the Pelelilu. And the Round Church and Richmond, Vermont. I knew about the church, and when I wrote this book, but I hadn't been in the New England in years and years and years. So it was really fun when I did a driving tour of the Northeast with my wife, who'd never been here, to show it to her. And we went to the Round Church, which you can see there in the background behind a goofy picture of me. And it's actually 16 or 20 sided, but it's a lovely spot in a little town. And at the very end of the book, I write about this one particular creek at the base of a long and dangerous waterfall where they have the wedding reception, or not the reception, the rehearsal dinner picnic thing. And so I went down and I got to take a picture of this beach that I had found through Google and, located and pinned it down and took, people's images from Flickr so I could make sure I got it right. And it was just really fun to go and stand at that point with my wife and go, oh, look, here's where Trisha was standing and here's where Emily Beale was. And um, it was just really pleasant. So if you're ever in Richmond, Vermont, go ahead and locate these two. So that's quick summary of Light Up the Night. Uh, please visit my website at mlbuchman.com. There's recipes, bonus stories, maps, more book club questions. So thanks for watching. Have a good one.